guys, welcome to Wanderlust Off the Page. My name's Aaron Miller. I'm a travel writer and your host, and today we're going to take the road less traveled to somewhere truly beautiful. Alberta in Canada has just about everything you might want from a holiday. It's got spectacular mountains and lakes and cowboys and cowgirls and all that good stuff. Plus it has our two wonderful guests today. So first up, Karen Anderson, thank you so much for coming on. You are the founder of the very delicious Alberta Food Tours, so I'm looking forward to hanging out with you today.
Thanks for having me. I'm thrilled to be here.
And secondly, we have Matricia Brown, who is one of the founders of Warrior Women, which is absolutely fascinating. I've loved looking into this kind of artist collective, drumming collective with your Indigenous background right at the center of all of that. So very much looking forward to finding out about that. Thank you for coming on the show.
Yeah, my pleasure, Aaron. I'm very glad to be here this morning.
And last but not least, she's not from Alberta, but she is our very own Lyn Hughes. Thank you so much for coming on. You've visited Alberta a bunch, of course, so looking forward to hearing some of your stories too.
Hey there, Aaron. And yes, I don't feel I've been to enough of Alberta yet, though, just to say.
How could you?
I absolutely love it. Absolutely love it. And the first time I went was over 30 years ago, in fact, 35 years ago, and spent a month there. And yeah, I still feel, I've been a few times since, but I still feel like I've only scratched the surface of it.
Yeah, well, it's such a huge province and there's so much to do there. So that's probably a good place to start as our resident kind of travel geography expert. I wonder if you could kind of place it for us. I'm sure that some people know the name, of course, but maybe aren't familiar where it is. So yeah, if you could just set the scene a little bit, I think that's a great place to start.
Yeah, I always think it as, if you look at Canada, it's second from the left. So it's bordered. Yeah, it's bordered by British Columbia. Right. In the west, Saskatchewan to the right, Northwest Territories is up above it. And it's, I think, to a lot of people, their first visit to Alberta and their first impressions of it will be visiting the Rockies, which of course are along the west-hand side. So it's a huge province. It's got the Rockies in the west, it's got prairies in the east, it's got desert badlands, it's got huge forests, and of course it's very famous for its lakes. So I think it's something like 600 lakes. I know the figure gets disputed a lot, but yeah, whenever you see the wonderful photo, I mean, we've had it on the front cover of Wanderlust before. Whenever you see a gorgeous, gorgeous lake with mountains reflected in it, there's a very good chance that would be a lake in Alberta, such as Lake Louise, for instance, is the most famous, but there are some other beautiful ones as well.
Yeah, that beautiful turquoise colour you get at certain times of the year as well. I think we're all familiar with that image. It's absolutely beautiful. And of course, Alberta is a winner of the Wanderlust Reader Travel Awards as well.
That's right. And yes, we run Reader Travel Awards every year, voted for by the readers. And I was so chuffed to see Alberta actually win top region as voted by our readers last year. Yeah. And I wasn't surprised, because, I don't need to be converted. I've been, and I know how beautiful and it is and how much there is to do there. And it's wonderful to see our readers respond to this and vote them as the top region in the world.
Yeah, and the other thing is there's so many places where you still can take the road less travelled. You mentioned the Rockies and people will know that, but we're going to talk about a lot of other areas today that are less familiar. And one of the things that always strikes me is that sense of space that you just don't get that, do you, in the UK?
Yeah, there is so much space. I mean, even if you go to the Rockies, even if you go in high season, you only have to walk a few hundred yards and you're going to leave anybody behind. It is just immense. It's incredible. And then there's the whole rest of the province to explore as well, which, there's so many beautiful places and which so few people get to. So, no, I envy them all of their space. And when I went in March, there was a huge snowstorm just before I got there, which caught me out of it. It did mean that I saw, for instance, the Rockies in the snow, which was incredible, but without any tourists. So, if you take the iconic Icefields Parkway, which is this incredible route between Jasper and Banff National Parks, effectively, and that so many visitors want to drive, you see mountains, forests, glaciers. If you do it early in the morning or towards sunset, you're going to see wildlife too. It is one of the most beautiful drives in the world, and yet we barely passed another vehicle as we drove it in March. So that was very, very special. And just that immensity of the landscapes, it makes you feel so small. Yeah, which is part of the joy of it.
And that is something we should all feel from time to time. I think we should all be humbled by beautiful, vast landscapes from time to time. But Karen, for you as a local, someone that lives there, how would you define Alberta?
It's diverse. So it isn't a place that you'll come and just have one kind of food or one culture. It's welcoming. There's a maverick spirit, there's a can-do spirit, and of course it's spectacularly beautiful. But again, people know about the Rockies, but the cities are exciting, and then everything in between. My sister lived in Jasper for 5 years, and last summer I took her to Alberta's small towns, and she said, "Oh, this is the real Alberta."
Nice.
The small towns and the feeling of a small town rodeo, a small town restaurant, and people that all know each other. So I think the rural Alberta is a place that people could really spend a lot of time in.
Yeah, that's interesting. Good shout out for that. And Matricia, as an Indigenous woman, you of course have a unique perspective, perhaps the most important perspective of all on Alberta. So what does it mean to you? How would you define it?
Well, we have a saying in Indigenous culture that we stand on the bones of our ancestors. So everybody who's ever come before me has, occupied Canada. And the area that I'm from is called Sturgeon Lake Cree Nation. And we always identify ourselves by the closest mountain or the closest water because we have a sacred relationship to the landscape. And so, we don't just enjoy the landscape, but we are part of it as well. We believe that Alberta is sacred ground. And so we have water rituals to the water. We have mountain rituals. We have our own names and places. And Alberta alone is actually home to some of the most significant archaeological finds for medicine wheels. They're almost 10,000 years old, which is older than the pyramids in the Roman Empire. And I don't think that is as sacred as it should be. But there's certainly places like Okotoks, like the Big Rock, and the Buffalo Plateaus and sacred pictographs, even in the national park, that are protected and heritage sites. So living in Jasper, it's UNESCO, it's world recognized, but it's also, as far as Indigenous people concerned, it's sacred ground.
It's an incredible fact, as that really puts it in perspective. Of course, Indigenous people have been in the area since time immemorial, but when you say, you're discovering these archaeological artifacts that are older than the pyramids and you have that time frame reference, it really brings it home. Yeah, that's wonderful. And I want to come back to some of that Indigenous history. And of course, when we talk about warrior women, dig deeper into your culture and that side of it. But I also kind of want to hear about different aspects of the history to kind of set up one of the things we're talking about today, which is the influence of women on Alberta's culture through history and today. So you may notice we have 3 strong, inspiring female guests on today, all of who have set up very successful travel businesses, and that kind of spirit of entrepreneurship, that kind of spirit of pushing forward is something that Alberta is I think kind of had throughout its history in some ways. I was really interested to learn that Alberta is actually named after Queen Victoria's 4th daughter, I believe, whose name was Louise Caroline Alberta. And did you know that her nickname was Lulu? And it could have been called Lululand. So you're actually very lucky. I don't feel like that name represents the sort of ruggedness of Alberta. I don't think down at the Calgary Stampede they'd be very, very happy about that. But But she was a very spirited, she was really ahead of her time. She was a huge advocate for women's rights. She spent 5 years in the province, absolutely loved it. I don't know, is that somehow that spirit, Karen, reflected some way in the Alberta that you know today, and perhaps some of the women such as you guys that are pushing the province and the country forward with all the work you're doing?
Well, I think, she was married to the Marquis of Lorne, and he was a Governor General of Canada. I think she had tremendous spirit and just made the best of wherever she was. So I think that spirit lives on here. We have a tremendous spirit of volunteerism. And, in 1927, 5 women, the famous 5 women here in Edmonton and Calgary, got women recognized as persons in the whole United Kingdom. So there is a real maverick spirit, but, I really bow to the first mavericks, the Indigenous people, because, they thrived here for at least 11,000 years that we know. And I have many mentors in the Indigenous community, and every time I spend any time with them, I come away more knowledgeable and more grounded. So I think that, yes, the pioneers brought a certain spirit, but to live here for 11,000 years, I really bow to the Indigenous people.
And of course, they wouldn't have survived without the Indigenous people.
That's right. The Cree people especially helped all the pioneers thrive here. And my own newcomers from Nova Scotia all married Mi'kmaq people. So back in the 1600s. But, I think that there's just this incredible maverick spirit that is the legacy of this place.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Matricia, you've touched upon some of that history and culture, but I wonder if you could fill us in a little bit more, because obviously there's a very beautiful side going back, as Karen said, at least 11,000 years or more. But there's the other side to it too. So it's only fair to mention both those aspects and acknowledge both those aspects. So yeah, maybe you could fill us in a little bit more.
Yeah, I was just thinking when everybody was talking about sort of the pioneer spirit of Alberta, and one of the more beautiful stories that's in Alberta is the one of the Kukum scarf. And so when Ukrainian women came over from the Eastern Bloc, they weren't necessarily accepted into the general sort of British kind of society that was being established. And actually Indigenous people were very close to them. We did a lot of trading. And one of the items that we've adopted from their culture is called a Kukum scarf. And Kukum, I don't know if you can see my necklace here, as a grandmother means grandmother in Cree, and the Kukum scarf is actually a Ukrainian scarf. It's a beautiful floral scarf, and we've adopted it heavily into our culture, and it's sort of like a crossing of the roads, and I think our history is made up of lots of different things. I think it's made up of being one with the land and sort of being Indigenous in that way of, we have this beautiful legacy of Cree people in Alberta, of the buffaloes and the hunts and the teepees and the chieftain heads. Like when people think of First Nations, Indigenous, Native people, they're talking about Cree people, and it can be romanticized. So yeah, the landscape was forever changed by colonization, and they also recognized the beautiful spaces that the Indigenous people were occupied. And a lot of times when those beautiful areas were made into national parks, who didn't always see the element of having Indigenous people present. And so a lot of the Indigenous people were extirpated or taken from the landscape. And that has led to, reconciliation efforts between the government and the Indigenous people that are involved. Like Alberta has over 33 different tribes, 21 of them which are represented in Jasper National Park historically.
Wow. So tell me about Warrior Women in relation to that. Why did you set it up? What's your mission? What's your hope for it?
So Warrior Women just became a way of sharing my own personal story and I run it with several women now. I have a jingle dancer. I have an Ojibwe woman. I have a Sequepam woman that helps me. I have my daughter, Mackenzie. And I think she was inducted into Warrior Women just because she was raised with a warrior woman. And she just, became part of that story, and then also part of that ability to share that story. I think intergenerationally, that is a powerful story. She doesn't have the same sort of trauma bond that I have. She's a little healthier. And that was really, really one of the things that I tried to change within my lifetime to break that cycle of trauma. I'm a 60 scoop survivor. My mom was a residential school. Went to residential school. So there was a lot of removal, loss, adoption, foster care stories with me and my siblings. And so you deal with loss in a way that you can either define you, can propel you forward, or it can lead you down a road of addiction. So I had to decide how that story would go for me and my family. And so my daughter, of course, and my son are very good examples of what a break in trauma can look like.
Yeah, it's beautiful. And it's beautiful as well because it's something I think you're able to share with visitors and inspire us as well, which, is a really, really powerful thing as well. Lyn, from a visitor perspective, we cover Indigenous tourism a lot in Wanderlust, in the magazine website and on the podcast. But, what, from a personal perspective, from a visitor perspective, coming to learn about that in Alberta, what have you gotten out of it? What has been your experience?
Having been several times over the last 33 years, I've found it so more meaningful now to be able to go there and experience and discover and learn about Indigenous peoples. And I think it really adds to a trip that you're not just going, much as I love landscapes and I love wildlife, that you're not just going for that, but that you are finding out about the people too. And I think by understanding about the people and their connection to the land, it actually makes you feel a much greater connection yourself to what you're seeing. It makes you feel it as well as see it when you're there. And so on this particular trip, my last trip last March, I was particularly interested in visiting Métis Crossing. So the Métis people, for anybody who doesn't know, these are people, they are seen as an Indigenous group in their own right within Canada, and they have both European and First Nations ancestry. And so what did happen is that when originally European, Scottish and other nationalities went out there to do things like fur trapping, hunting, they of course met with local people, mostly Cree, and eventually, a whole new culture was formed, taking some of each. So you've got bits of Cree, and you've got some very familiar seeming Scottish or French, Breton type customs, food. And so these are the Métis. And as I say, they're a very distinctive group. They have their own language. And they have this wonderful fusion of culture. And so it is something that the Métis people are, now proud of. And Métis Crossing was built to be a cultural centre and also a hospitality centre, basically a hotel where you can stay. So you've got this very, very good hotel, beautiful rooms. They've also now got domes. I slept in a dome. It was the first season for those. And so, because domes very trendy, they have a transparent roof. You know, you can see through the roof, which means
I always want to do that, actually. You cross your fingers, you get the northern lights at the same time.
Well, I was hoping March there was supposed to be a good chance, but unfortunately it was too cloudy. I was trying to wish those clouds away. But yeah, wonderful for northern lights, wonderful for stargazing at other parts of the year. I did see an eagle fly over. Fly over my dome, which was very special. It was wonderful. But yeah, so anyway, so take a very good hotel, as good as you'd get, with a dome type accommodation as well. Lots of activities and experiences, excellent food. And so I was there and keen to try as many of these experiences as possible. So they had, for instance, this wonderful woman there, Lily Rose Mayer, who was a Métis elder, and she's a knowledge keeper. And so essentially you could talk to Lily Rose, did a nature tour with her. The Métis Crossing has now got its own nature reserve. It's essentially huge paddocks or enclosures where they've been reintroducing bison. So I hadn't really appreciated before that there is more than one type of bison. You have the plains bison and the wood bison. And so they've reintroduced both of them. They've got big herds of each. They've got some very rare white bison. They're not a pure white. They're a kind of, so shall we say generous and say cream, but they're very cute.
I've never even heard of that. I didn't know you got white bison.
Well, white bison had special significance for them. They were seen as being particularly special. So that was special, seeing all of these animals being reintroduced and in good numbers. And of course, it's an opportunity for the Métis as well to learn about their own heritage. And we went snowshoeing, the first time I've ever been snowshoeing. And that was just magical, because to do it in the snow was so different to the snow you get in the UK. And it was proper deep powder snow, yes. And so to go along swishing through, a forest track down to a river, so magical. And of course, you could see lots of tracks of animals. You could see bird tracks, fox tracks, and we even saw bear tracks because there'd been a bear that had just been seen in the previous week, had come out of hibernation.
Yeah, it sounds magical, and the way you describe that is, it's always those, for me anyway, when you have those kind of deep experiences, that's what you take home with you. Often those are the memories you take home, and watching you light up as you tell those stories is amazing. And I've read that article, by the way, of yours, so I do recommend everyone to go and check that out and see some of the photos as well. Top tip about snowshoeing. I love snowshoeing as well, but top tip, don't try and walk backwards. Those things are not designed to walk backwards, and falling over in front of your entire group into a snowdrift that you can't get out of is also a humbling experience, but not as good as a humbling experience as like being in a vast landscape. It's just humbling in the bad way.
I've got a picture of you now upside down with your legs on the air. Yeah,
exactly. Unable to get out. Yeah, exactly. So Matricia, coming over to you now. Obviously, Lyn's talked there very eloquently about some of the positive effects from a visitor, but it's also a delicate subject, of course, and there's the whole other side of things which we need to touch on as well. It's only fair to acknowledge that. So how do you approach tourism? How do you approach sharing your culture and history with visitors?
So I don't know if I would call what I do Indigenous tourism. As obviously Indigenous tourism, but I just call what I do tourism. I just share my own personal story. So I think visitors do want to have an experience where it is real, where it's connected, and where it's transformational. And I think having these experiences that introduce them to the land and kind of reignite their passion for the outdoors. You're outside, we eat outside, we drink our teas outside, we show them the flora, and even the art that's created is, very significantly representing the nature around us. It's almost in everything that we do. So yeah, I think all of those experiences between plant walks, between fireside chats, between just introducing the different flora herbalism with tea or food experiences, I think is really just a nice way of breaking bread, so to speak. And even in Indigenous culture, we have our own foods like pemmican, and we like to be progressive, so we like to take anything that the English have done and make it better. So, of course, we took their bread and we deep fried it in buffalo fat, and we call it bannock. And then we made our beautiful jams, but we made them with the flora that we had around here, which is blueberries and raspberries and gooseberries and Saskatoon berries and all these beautiful ways of incorporating that vitamin C and vitamin A and vitamin E into our diets and keeping us healthy over the winter. So that preservation of food and meat, dry meat in particular, dry fish and pemmican, these are all really significant ways of preserving food, preserving our nutrients, and then keeping us alive over, what is normally considered quite a harsh winter.
So Karen, staying on food then, is that something that you've personally experienced? Like, what are some of the ways that you approach food tourism?
I think my favorite food tour that we do, and I don't know if Lyn maybe did this one at the Calgary Farmers Market. I think it's transformational for locals, but also for visitors, because they're learning about those iconic foods of this place, but they're also tasting them as we go around the market. And they're learning about the stories of what it takes to bring the food to the market. And so that's one thing, in a neighborhood in Calgary called Inglewood, it was really the first neighborhood that came up. And so we're able to intertwine history, art, and culture with food. Matricia's daughter, Mackenzie, has a beautiful mural there. Mackenzie is talking about conservation. It's about the white pine, and a species that needs forest fires to go on. So, wherever we see stories like that, we're bringing them in. So we also visited the Native Art Gallery, Moonstone Creation in Inglewood. So, we're telling the story from where it starts with the Indigenous people to the pioneers to the modern day food mavericks that have really reinvigorated that neighborhood. So people get to eat at some of Calgary's best restaurants like Rouge, Dean House, the Nash. So, it's fun designing tours. We also have one in the heart of downtown Calgary, where we really wanted to showcase some of the things that are special to Calgary. The Bloody Caesar, I don't know if people know what that is, a mixture of vodka and clam and tomato juice, very spicy. That was invented in Calgary in 1969. So Canadians drink 400 million of them a year. That's a big deal.
It's cold there in winter, right? You got to keep warm somehow. So.
Yeah. And ginger beef, that's part of our Chinese Canadian heritage. That was invented in Calgary in the 1970s. It's absolutely succulent thing to eat. And then just the history of the iconic buildings in downtown Calgary, Stephen Avenue, named after the first president of the CP Rail, George Stephen, and it's been a pedestrian walkway since 1970. And then again, there's so much art in downtown Calgary that we talk about. So our tours are never just about the food. They're always about the history and the art and the connection. Everything's connected. So we have a lot of fun designing tours, and we do a lot of bespoke tours as well.
Yeah, I think that people that maybe haven't done a food tour before, Karen, how you approach that is like the key into culture and history and showcasing the way all these different elements are intertwined and in some way inseparable. Like, I think we want to go and learn about history, go and learn about art, go and learn about food. But I think when you can draw the lines between some of these different things and just show how they enhance and kind of show off each other and how they're connected through that shared story is a really fascinating and beautiful way to approach it. But Matricia, I also wanted to talk about music. Of course, that's something that you're also heavily involved in. Could you tell me a little bit about that? I know Warrior Women is also a drumming collective.
Yeah, so in Cree culture, the drum is basically the heartbeat of the nation. And because we believe that the Mother Earth has a heartbeat, we mimic that. And it's the first sound that we hear in our mother's womb. So it's a way of connecting generations of people. But it's just a basic sound that's created by an instrument that really hasn't changed much in about 10,000 years. I think that sharing that tradition with my generation and other Indigenous women ties us together in a way that we can't always talk about. And I think music has that ability to transcend conversations that we can't always have. Music is just one of those universal sounds, regardless of whether people can understand the Cree words or not. Even the drumming has changed, like we have like really traditional songs, but we also have songs that are in English now because that's the primary language that we speak in order to be understood. So we write our own songs and we sing our own songs, but we also sing other women, Indigenous music, and we do that together. And there's something very lovely about singing with other people. You can do it in harmony, and it's a nice way of experiencing those modalities.
Yeah, I love how you describe the drum as like the heartbeat is the first thing we hear. I've never heard it. I've never just kind of heard it described like that before. I think that's a really interesting, take on why it's so powerful in some ways. Like the drum is something I think we all respond to emotionally. It's that beating sound, it's pushing those airways out, but it's our first instrument as human beings, and it's there's just something so powerful about being there. I want to be there and hear that and experience it firsthand. Is that something either of you guys?
You did in your mother's womb.
That's right. Yeah.
Right. So the first sound you ever heard was her heartbeat. It wasn't even your own, and that you did that for 8 months, 9 months, and so the beautiful thing about that is when you hear the drum, regardless of whether you understand that or not, you're having a primordial memory, and that's really connects all of us, because regardless of what differences we have, we've all sat in our mother's womb and we heard that sound, and that connects us more than anything else. So I think when we're talking about people from other cultures and foods and differences, it's really important to also bring us down to a human level where everybody can relate to something that they've all experienced. And regardless of whether you're a drummer or not, you feel that.
Yeah. Music, the shared language, it's the one language we all intuitively speak without having to learn it. It's and it's that language that says all the things in between the words that are, as you say, hard to express, but something that we can kind of understand and communicate together, when whether it's singing in harmony together or dancing together or hearing that drum beat together. It's I think that's really beautifully said. And in terms of some of the other things you did, you mentioned the fireside chat earlier. Lyn, I know that you've experienced the fireside chat too, so I would love your story about that.
Oh gosh, do you know what? When I saw Matricia today doing this podcast and hear her talking again about the drum, it has sent sort of shivers and tingles down me. Because yes, on my trip last March, I was with, just to explain, I was with a small group of other people, all travel people. And we knew nothing about this experience that we were going to be having, but Matricia was booked to do a fireside chat with us, and we hadn't been told anything. And so just imagine we were sitting around this wonderful fire, starlit sky, huddled under blankets, hot chocolate. And probably at first we were still natter. And then Matricia appeared and she just talked and we just fell silent. We were entranced. She sang, she beat her drum, and I think you could have heard a pin drop yeah, we were so then in the moment. And that was the point. She brought us into the moment. Yeah. She brought us into Jasper, into Alberta. Instead of talking about or thinking about everything but where we were suddenly really properly in the moment. She then came round each of us in turn and simply asked us very simply about our day, or what memory we had. Was there something special in the day? What was a feeling we had felt during the day or that evening? And she just had this wonderful way of getting everybody to tap into something. And people were really opening up. And it did get quite emotional, really, in cases. And it really somehow grounded us. And it's so hard to explain, but it was a very spiritual type thing, frankly.
Yeah.
And when we, afterwards, when we, Matricia left, we found that we kept talking about it. And I think as a group, we felt closer, frankly. And 2 or 3 days later, when the trip finished, we had a final dinner. And we went around the table, with everybody saying what their very special memories were of the week or the times that they'd felt touched. And person after person talked about that fireside chat and how it had really, really touched them, really influenced them. And they were just so glad. It was an absolute highlight.
I think I've got goosebumps now. That does sound just magical. So we've covered a lot, but Alberta is absolutely enormous. So there's still a lot to go. So I thought what we might do just to wrap it up is kind of go around and ask you guys if there's anything that we haven't mentioned that you would like to talk about. So Karen, I thought we might start with you. You have written an awesome food book called Food Artisans, and you claim that it is the greatest food adventure of all time, or at least the greatest food adventure that you've had, which is saying something. So maybe you could start. Tell me all about it.
Listen, that was a great adventure. In 2017, I drove 10,000 kilometers around Alberta. Lyn mentioned how vast Alberta is. It's the size of Texas, or it's the size of Belgium, the Netherlands, and France put together. Wow. So I think, it is a place where you can come and roam and really feel the power of its presence. There's an area called the special areas that couldn't sustain the pioneers when they came, so the government manages it as grazing lands. But when you stand out there, you feel this infinite space of blue sky and your connection to the earth. It's very powerful. All of the UNESCO sites across Alberta, Jasper, the parks, down to writing on stone with the petroglyphs, head smashed in, buffalo jump. They're all magnificent places. And I also love the vibrancy of our cities, the food culture. Chefs travel the world, but they come back here to put Alberta on the plate for people. But again, it's like beyond the cities, Alberta is a very rural place. And so getting out into those small towns and discovering the hospitality, the true Western hospitality, is phenomenal. And, I would encourage people to go to powwows as well, because you're welcome. So I think it's just like book off a lot of time to come to Alberta.
Yeah, exactly. Book off an extra week for sure.
Yeah.
Matricia, what about you? Is there anywhere else that you would like to talk about that we haven't mentioned yet?
I think just, broadening the idea of what Indigenous tourism is. And I think remembering sort of like the diversity of Canada, and Alberta alone has like over 30 different tribes. So having one experience like mine, for instance, doesn't necessarily, give you an Indigenous overview. So you can, wherever you are, you could, take a little side trip, or check out the art, or check out the food, or check out, the different knowledge keepers.
Lyn, and I wanted to ask you, you love horses. And so we haven't even spoken about, that side of Alberta. I'm sure you've had some great experiences when it relates to that kind of thing.
I must admit, I've been fascinated by cowboy culture since I was a toddler, when I used to insist that my parents called me cowboy. So,
now you've let the cat out of the bag.
So this might be one of the reasons I love Alberta as well, because there is quite a sort of a cowgirl culture there, and I do stress cowgirls as well.
Yeah.
And so, when we were in Calgary at the end of the trip, one of the things I had to do was take a pilgrimage to the Alberta Boot Company, for instance, which is a wonderful business, family-owned business that makes cowboy boots. And I did end up with a beautiful, beautiful pair of white and silver cowgirl boots, which formed part of my wedding celebration. They were one of 3 outfits I wore at my wedding last summer. So I love all that. And I must admit, the thing I haven't done, I've been dreaming of it for over 30 years, the thing I haven't done yet in Alberta is a real pack horse trip, going into a real wilderness area and, on horseback. And because I look at all that incredible vast scenery and all that space, and I want to be exploring it on a horse because, of course, you can go further, go deeper. And there's something very special about being on a horse, I think, where you feel part of nature, you feel part of the environment. And so that's what I want to go back and do.
Yeah, that's a great shout. I'm not a very good equestrian by any stretch of the imagination, but that's on my bucket list too, actually, because I think we all have that sort of connection to the West, and to go and see that epic landscape on a horse would be just absolutely magical. Well, from Alberta's first people through to Lulu, Princess Lulu, Alberta, through to you wonderful people. It's incredible to have such inspiring, entrepreneurial, strong women on the show, keeping that flag going forward and keeping that torch going forward. So thank you so much. It's been wonderful to chat with you all. Where can we connect with you, Karen? Where can we find out more about Alberta Food Tours?
Oh, albertafoodtours.ca. And it's all there.
Okay.
We have a blog. We're constantly updating it with the latest things that we think will help travelers. Whatever they're looking for, it's probably there.
Lots of good books and recipes you've written there as well. So definitely worth checking that out as well. And Matricia, where can we find out more about Warrior Women?
Yeah, so warriorwomen.ca.
Fantastic. And Lyn, of course, there's loads of stuff that you've written and other writers from the Wanderlust team up on wanderlustmagazine.com. Some beautiful photos, some lovely videos. So make sure you do go and check that out. And also travelalberta.com is another great resource. So make sure you do check that out. Yeah. So thank you so much for listening, guys. And thank you especially to all three of you. It's been amazing to have you on the show.
Thank you, Aaron.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.